All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun, and we are back with more of our month of Netflix discussions and different things that I've been streaming. And I got to say, I definitely picked the right time to come back to Netflix. This isn't, I don't want to make this sound like a commercial for freaking Netflix or anything, but I've really been enjoying coming back to it. There's a lot of stuff on here, and there was a lot of things that I thought I'd be talking about already. There was a lot of things I thought I'd be watching already. And to be honest, like when I saw the thumbnail for Bodies, I didn't think nothing of it. I passed it on by. I just went right on by it and was watching One Piece and other stuff. And for some reason, I just clicked on it and saw that Stephen Graham was in it. So before we get started, if you're liking what we do here, make sure you're hitting the like button, subscribe, bell, all that shit. And this, I don't know how long this is going to go for. I don't know what kind of rabbit holes we're going to go down, and I don't know how many things I'm going to spoil. We'll be talking about the ending for sure, but I think I'll leave like all the main plot points fairly vague, and we'll save the ending a bit of this to talk about what actually happens in the story, like somewhat properly, but still leaving enough so that if you want to have it, if you're the kind of person who likes to, skip to the end of a book to find out who did it, you might get a kick out of this if you just like listen to all of it. But we're not going to spoil any of that right now. But I just finished watching it like just about 20 minutes or so ago. And just like the Fall of the House of Usher, like this isn't as good. Like it's not as like it doesn't have me. No, it has me pretty good. It doesn't reach the levels of like how much I like it, like a Mike Flanagan production on Netflix, but this comes pretty close. And what I really like is it's a limited series. There doesn't need to be no sequels to this. It's a full solid 8 episodes long, hour-long episodes, dense episodes, but like something's always happening and changing. And I just thoroughly enjoyed just about every bit of this. I was a little concerned at the beginning. Because I'm story and character and writing. Those are what I really appreciate. And after the first episode, I'll be honest, I wasn't sure if I felt like this was probably going to be I like the plot, I like the ideas enough to probably watch it all, but like it might be something that I end up like stopping halfway through, because I just didn't really know about the characters. I wasn't won over by like what was going on. And I think a lot of pressure gets put on that first episode of anything that gets talked about. Like sometimes the second or third episode of something is where it really kicks off. And a major television show, at least sometimes, you have less time to do that in these limited series. So you have to hope that like if something doesn't grab you pretty quickly, by the second episode it better, or otherwise there are things that are like slow burns, but if something's really not grabbing you into like the second episode, you probably don't even need to finish it. Thankfully that's not what happens here, and now looking back, I really like the first episode. It's the setup. It is who these characters are, the world that they're in, and blah blah blah. And I haven't even started talking about like the plot of this yet, right? We're still talking about concepts, basically, about why we're even watching this show. But Bodies, Netflix original, but based off of a comic book, which is pretty clear to me now, like watching it. It was at once an original idea, and it's translated pretty well into this show. So basically, if you're watching this and you have no idea what I'm talking about, well, definitely don't watch later on when I start spoiling everything. But Bodies is basically it's 2023. An officer named English, British, whatever. I don't know. That even like here in America, just because we live in Illinois doesn't mean like we're part of like some other country. We don't really consider we're all just Americans. Whether we're southern, northern, eastern, western, whatever, middle, we're all just Americans. But like other places, I feel like, especially like in like, well, not especially, but just when I think of Europe, wow, we're going down rabbit holes already. Like there's just so many different corners of it that I feel like those groups actually like to be identified as those groups and separate, kind of like their own little tribes. I mean, we have tribalism here in America, but I don't know how, like, what the difference would be, but I think we're probably scared because we have more guns. That's what makes us scarier. There's probably less guns over there. Um, wow. But I didn't. That's why I went whatever about like that they're British. All right, this is a show set in London, so. But we're talking about Detective Hassan, and she is at a parade for a bunch of racists. She's running security. She sees this guy being suspicious. She follows. He leads her to a dead body, naked, laying there, mark on the skin. And, it's playing out like, okay, it's weird. It's an odd thing. The guy's got a hole in his, like, eye where the bullet went in. And, we kind of follow her character a little bit. Like, we get to know her, kind of. I feel like she's the one with the least that we know about. Like, we don't really follow her, like, life. Her part of this story is kind of just dealing with this kid named Elias, who will grow up to be the older Stephen Graham character that takes place the majority of the series over this kid actor, and she has to deal with her investigation. Now it's called Bodies for a reason, and that's because back in 1941, we find out that in the same alleyway, a body pops up. Same guy, except he's found by a detective Whiteman. I should say also straight up, because we're just doing the plot. We're still like, you actually have to discuss this like plot. You can't just go, okay, so it's like just a time travel show. No, you got to be like give basic like premise for a show like this. And this guy finds the same body, and he's got his own whole thing going on in London, 1941. He's Jewish, and he's not a great guy. See, like Shahara in like 2023, she's just a mom and a cop, and she's trying to do her job, and this guy though, he's into some stuff. And as it goes on, and as we'll keep going on with this discussion, like but I didn't like him. There was something just you know what I mean, like I don't know, maybe I just whatever, but he's in his own world, and he's deep into some stuff, and he's kind of being looked into. Like people are getting suspicious of him and his own police force, and not to say that they're all kind of feels really, really, really corrupt. So it's like a bunch of pots calling the kettles black. Like everybody's bad. Like really, none of these guys should be pointing fingers at anybody. Meanwhile, again, we go all the way back to 1890, where there's another detective played by Kyle Solar. He's Detective Hillinghead, who Kyle Solar, fantastic in this. Everybody's really, really good in this. But Kyle Solar is the only one besides Stephen Graham and Greta Scacchi that I really recognized straight up. Um, Andor, and boy, oh boy, is he miles and miles away from that. Like, if I wasn't so good at that kind of like, that's so and so. Like, I'm pretty much a walking IMDb page, like computer in my head. And as soon as I saw him, I knew him from somewhere because he really is nothing looking like he is in Andor. He is in miles above that character. Like, just I can see that this guy's got a lot of range. And he's like, you're talking like Jack the Ripper era Whitechapel cop, because this is all in Whitechapel. I should also bring up. And I think that that's pretty comic booky. Like, as soon as I heard about this being a comic book first, it was like so many things just clicked into place about different choices and different influences that are in this story, because this thing is influenced up to wazoo with all kinds of pretty cool stuff. I mean, I like little nods, like things that you just know were taken slightly from X, Y, and Z. Um, but he's, a closeted gay man who's got a family, and he's a pretty, he seems like all these guys are of different degrees of like different standings in their police officer, like in their precincts. This guy finds the body, and his thing is this poor guy gets run through the ringer. They all get run through the ringer in different ways. Um, and it's all due to them investigating, trying to find out all about this body. Now, before I get into too many other spoilers, the big other plot point of the first episode is that there is a fourth timeline, except this one's in the future. And it's 2053. A body's found by Detective Maplewood, played by Shira Haas, who is definitely somebody to look out for. So is Jacob Fortune Lloyd, who plays Whiteman. All these people, actually, honestly, look out for like a ton of these people to be all over the place. Including Sinov Carlson Polly, who's already been in an Edgar Wright movie, so she's on the up and coming track. But all these people, I know that I've never seen it, but I know Jacob Fortune Lloyd was in Rise of Skywalker. Whether you like it or not, that's high profile. But the main draw for this like cast, at least for me, and again, the reason I didn't pass it over when I saw that he was in it, was Stephen Graham, who is I love my character actors. Everybody on my channel knows this. And Stephen Graham has been one of these guys that I've been following for over 20 years now. I love this guy. I think the first thing I saw him in was Snatch. Back in like, I always guess it was early 2000s. So over 20 years. And he's just one of those guys who just always delivers. Like, whatever character he's doing, he is gonna give it 1,000,000%. Even like as the Pirates of the Caribbean movies went on and he showed up, he was a highlight in those movies. And those movies were declining, kind of, for me at least, in real entertainment value. Pretty, I don't know. After, I'm not even sure how many there are anymore, but he was always a standout in that. But Gangs in New York, The Irishman, those are just the ones that I can just pop off the top of my head. But fantastic actor, and he's barely in the first episode, and I started getting concerned there's going to be one of those where it's like, oh, he's just kind of there here and there. But thankfully we get tons of him. And oh my goodness, okay, his performance is Elias Mannix / Jacob, or what's his name, Julian Harlock. There's so many different names here, and in fact some of these actors aren't even listed because I think it's like almost be spoilers. But he plays like two different people. He takes the place of this guy. But basically his character, Elias Mannix, like, as far as like bad guys go, he is pretty high up there in my opinion. At least in the last, for a while, I haven't seen a bad guy like this guy. At least I think it has mostly to do with the performance from this guy. Um, because this is, I mean, spoilers. This guy is like, as you see in like the first episode, he's like this. As the kid, he's like really troubled. We know that something really, really bad happened in 2023, the same year that Shahara is in. And I kind of don't know if I want to like how to keep going without getting too spoilery. But because a lot of this, at least starts out as them just all trying to figure out, and us as an audience trying to figure out what is up with these bodies. Now, as I said, I was a little concerned about the characters after the first episode, but as the second episode went on, I really when they started to really flesh these people out, give them enough of a personality and backstory and general like how they navigate their world, what they're thought of in their world, their place in it. It started to really grow on me, especially with Whiteman's story in 1941. As you know, the Blitzkrieg is coming. I think that's what it was, right? In the middle of this, he's tasked to basically, like, his part of the story is to be the guy who helps cover up things. He gets a phone call from some lady on the phone talking about "you will be loved," and he carries out tasks for them. And circumstances that happen put him in a precarious situation with another police officer that ends up with him having to cover his tracks. And these people that he works with over the phone are also in on making sure that everything that has happened is covered up. And they're going to great lengths to help this particular officer up. And every single one of these detectives has like this role to play in this big picture as it unfolds. Now, to me, I kind of, I could see a lot of this coming a mile away. And it's also a time travel show. So look, you're either in or you're out. I think that depending on how they execute time travel, how they go about doing it, I think I'm able to forgive a lot of the nonsense that comes with time travel. I think if they take it seriously, but it's not written well, it's not handled well, whatever, I don't like it being overly snotty and not knowing really, how to at least sound like they know what they're talking about. Other times it's just, goofy, silly. And if, like Back to the Future, and depending again, tone and how they handle it. Does this know what it is? A lot of times you can handle it like that. This is one of those ones that the concept is so wild that, well, it's basically a guy who like look, I put on my thumb here like my little name thing. It says my own third cousin. What happens is like a time loop. And what this guy is doing is it's very psychological. This guy is really damaged, and he's trying to, what he thinks will be, because there's like this whole cult wrapped around this kid. There's a whole big thing surrounding this kid. Very Rosemary's Baby in a way, of like this like underground secret, like only certain people, the Illuminati type of shit, of people that are in the know about like something that's going to happen and how we have to help make it happen. And it's this one kid, he's like the chosen one, except he's like his own chosen one. And as we see along the way of like, in one timeline, we see how he becomes, or like, like who he was to be, as he does what he does, what happens. um and I felt like this part of the story was a little weak, only because I just had a hard time myself with it coming down to like a really hurt, like a really messed up kid with a bad up, like pretty much no upbringing. And I think maybe it just hits a little too close to home in a lot of ways. And I think that my own personal like experiences has made it kind of like, I think what's the saying, familiarity breeds contentment. Or resentment, contentment. Whoopsie. Nope, that's not what I meant. I meant resentment. So I think my own personal was just a little like, man, like I started seeing it as like the ultimate fantasy of some like lonely kid out there. It's like, oh yeah, well, I'll just do this and make a better world and I'll get rid of all of you. That kind of thing. But it's done way better than that. I mean, it's handled way better than that, as much as it can be like, wasn't somebody just, put this kid in therapy? But like, when you know that the bigger picture here is they want to create this like utopia, or at least what they think is a utopia, what this kid thinks will be in a utopia. And everything that he's been fed is it gets peeled back and revealed to us and revealed to the characters. Like a lot of this information that happens really comes out for everyone. Like it feels very participatory in that. This is a really fun show to watch with other people as you sit there and just be like, what? No way. And try to guess what's coming next and things. So I feel like I'm trying to be vague, but I really feel like I'm giving up a lot. But I really hope that if you haven't seen it, what I'm saying is not like, if I've been saying too much, I hope you had the good sense to turn it off and go watch the show. Because to keep talking about it is going to come to spoiler territory. So I'm trying to think of anything else that I can say that isn't spoilery. Outside of, again, I talked a good amount about this cast. Okay, so if you don't want anything spoiled for you about this show, definitely click off now and go watch it, and then come back here some 20 minutes later. Okay, for all of you that stuck around, or have come back, welcome back. All right, so this guy, all right, one of the reasons why I like him as a villain, is, I mean, again, it was kind of annoying that he's like this kid who just gets this thing, but it's all in this loop, and it's sad because he just wants, he's so neglected. He is just a lost person. He has been made, but that you realize he's been made into this. Like somebody did this to him on purpose. Not like, some neglectful parent that just is just neglect. Like, there's no plan. They didn't go, I'm going to have a kid so I can neglect him. Like when you find out that he was made this way, and you find out that he was made this way by his his future self, to make sure that he becomes what he has to become to create their own little future that they love. And this convincing himself that because he was, by creating by creating this loop that he's made, this literal self-fulfilling prophecy of like, I feel like shit, the whole world sucks, I'm gonna blow the world up because I was told by my past future self that we're gonna make this like great world and I will be loved. And it's like, but if they just loved him, he wouldn't need it. And it's like this, the Aurora Boreas or whatever, like of eating its own tail. Like it's fucked. But it's like this ultimate like you don't know where the narcissism ends, where it started, where it like. But and it's so ridiculous, right? It's nuts. but it's all played so well by Stephen Graham and the younger version of himself, Gabriel Howell, who uh, doesn't get to do much in here. Everything has got to, so much is in his face and his like mannerisms, and he does feel like really desperate. I will say that, especially as it peels back layer to layer, time to, like for this kid, like as you find out what he's been put through and all this, like him feeling trapped and like being asked to do these insane things just to, get what he like is being promised. Now the main real cool draw in this, of course, is the separate timelines. I found the 2023 one. I mean, they all had their own different tones. So like 2023 is like a ticking clock. Hassan's got like only a certain amount of time once she finds out about this bomb. That she's got to figure out a way to convince this kid not to do what he's going to do, no matter what she does. And throughout this whole thing, like one of the things that's a little, like as the show goes on, is everything feeling so eventual. Everything is going to happen. They cover all that. Like if it's happened, it's happened. How do you change it if it's already happened? And tons of shows and movies have done this before, of creating whole new timelines. Does this even matter? Would you even exist? Did you just branch off? Does that thing still exist when you happen? This one just kind of wants you to take it as, no, we can just, jump in and out and change everything. And again, in for a penny, in for a pound. If you can't get on board with the idea, then just turn it off. Don't try to put yourself through it and yell at the TV like, this doesn't make sense. It's all theoretical BS comic book stuff. All right. If we can, we are nowhere near being able to do this. And if we could, we definitely shouldn't, because we can't even handle the internet. You want us to start jumping in and out of timelines like a bunch of fucking just no, we can't. We would just, we would unmake the entire universe in like 5 seconds. But I really, really liked her, this ticking clock one. The future was really interesting too, because her performance as this cop and her having to deal with the guy who they keep finding, and her dealing with the version of Elias at post the explosion, the one who survived and then built his world out of the ashes of London that he destroyed. I mean, that's basically how he got to make his thing. Like there's another Vandal Savage from DC Comics. He kind of makes me think of that guy, who's been able to like take his wisdom of things and amass this, because he's immortal. He was able to like live through everything and just gather immense wealth. This guy like did it by coming out of the ashes of the thing. He blows up the world and then he rebuilds it and gets rich off of it and can do whatever, and also that he can go back in time to make sure all of this happens and be loved, which is the biggest lie of them all. And it's like, as I'm saying it out loud, so much of it, even as I was watching, was like, man, this is fucking bananas. But it's also something that I will come back to and rewatch. There are things that I like just fine, but I won't go back and rewatch them. There was a fear here that it was going to be one of those shows where I would never want to come back to it. And there's part of me that almost wishes it had been that kind of show. Because then I would have felt like, man, like And by that I mean the ending. If the ending had been just as kind of grim as the rest of the show was, I would have felt that that would have stayed really, at least tonally and realistically, as like, because just, I don't know, maybe I'm just so used and accept the fact that the bad guys usually just win. The worst people win, and happy endings just don't happen. Um, but I'm glad that it ended the way it did, even if that was, like, look, this movie makes you asks you to make a lot of leaps. But since I was on board with the acting and the writing and the settings and the way it was fun and entertaining, heartbreaking. I mean, this is a show that like is not afraid to like kill a kid. I mean, I couldn't like, and that poor girl Esther. Good lord, good lord. I was like, just if you're gonna do her in, just do her in. Like she gets talk about like, okay, look, she took advantage of a situation. She was gonna like turn him in. Then she turns it into blackmail. Gotta give it up to Enterprise, but when she went blackmail, the character kind of gets like, well, you did it to yourself. But hey, man, somebody wrote this. Somebody put this kid in danger on paper, and so they're the ones to blame. But as it goes on, like she gets like knocked out, thrown in a fucking her own grave. You think she's been shot in the face. Instead, she's alive, but now she can't ever go anywhere again, basically, because these people want her dead. And as soon as I saw the one lady that's played by Greta Scacchi, I was like, oh, she is not a nice old lady. They spent like, I didn't know it was Greta Scacchi at the time. Otherwise, I'd have been like, red alert character does not belong. This is an actual actor. You know what I mean? Like, not some extra. That's just walking by going, excuse me, like, like an extra with one line or something that's just meant to be like, the old lady that we passed said hello. No. As soon as I saw her and the way that she performed, I was like, she's not just some old lady, man. She's going to kill you. I just knew it. I knew when he left the kid with her, I was like, oh no, you just saved her to have her get killed by Granny with chocolate. I was like, oh, I mean, I knew it. Like, even he was, there was a scene where he gets offered a drink. Maybe it was the 1890 version. Yeah, it was the 1890 version of him, not the 1941 version. Never mind. But the poisoning of the kid, like that poor kid just couldn't catch a break. Let's see. Things that I want to talk about. Well, I should talk about that scene. Like so back in 1890, there's a scene where Hillinghead is invited over to a seance that Elias's mother, he takes the place of this lady's son, and she's in on it like almost right away, because she's like a medium or whatever. She reads tarot cards and she does things with spirits and stuff. And it's like the only weird, like, okay, it's also supernatural, like it's sci-fi supernatural. But anyway, he is offered a drink and he's like, he puts it away. Like I thought I saw him put the liquor away, and then in the next scene we see him drinking, and you're like, what do you do? Was that on purpose? Like, how did he get, if he knew that it was drugged, why did he take another drink? What if he successful? I don't know. That part like didn't make sense to me, but maybe I need to watch it over again. Other notable things. There's no way I'm going to be able to talk about it all, and I don't want to like make a million-hour video talking about like just being the Chris Farley show. And like, remember when? But as we talk about the end, right? Let's just talk about the ending. Poor old Hillinghead, good lord, goes like freaking Tale of Two Cities, takes the blame for the other guy, gets strangled to death, and then, and this is where it really solidifies Stephen Graham's Elias as a villain, right? Because he takes Hillinghead's daughter as his wife to have his own, like he's his own great 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 grandson or something. I was just, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe this story was going there. And the guy knew it before he died. That he was this, and he was just telling him like, and he had no regret. And like, you're supposed to like, there's this whole thing going on about how they needed to like, that nobody knew that this guy really regretted it, and that he just kind of just keeps going. And but even like it, so Hillinghead dies, and this guy takes his wife, and he has his own great 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 grandson or whatever. It's just, I couldn't believe it. And the same thing with the, you know, Whiteman who goes after them after they kill Esther, which I did like. I loved his revenge story of just going up to like he's the guy that did it. But the thing is like it all, that everything was going to happen. Only person who knew though was Elias, and so he has all these people around him just knowing, and he's keeping it to himself that like Polly. I see. I didn't realize that was Polly, the older version, that was like there and getting shot in the head, and like it depending on what like universe, like because it changes, right? So like one, she's totally in on the cult thing. She gets brought in after they have a kid, and she, you know, kind of accepts it. But in the other one, when she's just like pissed off and shit, But Whiteman, you know, his is almost like film noir, like London film noir, where he's the guy that's gonna get back of it because you done in the little kid, you know, you went too far. Like I said, Hassan's story is trying to keep this kid from blowing everybody up, but he does, and it is still intense, especially when you find out that there was the second, like he giving him the number and everything, and then him just like laying waste to London, pretty crazy. 20 and like I haven't really much to say about the 2053 stuff. Other than I really liked the performances. I really liked her and Tom Mothersdale as Gabriel Defoe, who plays all the bodies that go through. You know, when they actually flesh out that character, I thought that was great. Being the victim, like in the kind of this catalyst and what his role is in all of this, I liked watching their relationship. I liked how that changed her. She's a company girl. She's given this like this apparatus that allows her to walk around in this better world. She has stake in it. So I guess the more I talk about this, the more I realize that hers is like really integral too, because she's the believer. She's the one who got benefited from all of this, and now she has to like face the truth. Can she accept it? Will she risk everything that she has for everyone else? And her struggles with that, and how she plays like these dark parts in it that she doesn't even know are going to really happen. A lot of these characters don't, they don't know what's going to happen. And the way that they get to communicate with each other by accident, like the strength of wanting to solve the mystery, leaving some clue for someone, the desperation, that knowing that something bigger is happening here. It's just really, really great. Now, again, the ending, it's as Hollywood as it comes. Now, the very, very ending, I like that it leaves it to interpretation of did they really fix everything? That kind of thing. Or why is she there? How did she get there? Now, I kind of believe that I saw her split off like in the 3. Now, I don't think that there needs to be any more than that to the ending. I think it's just an ending. And somehow certain things are just going to always come, because they say, like this guy, the universe wants him alive. Now, whether he blipped out for real, or maybe something somewhere else he is. Maybe he's somewhere else. Maybe he got there in a different way. Maybe he, without all this, I don't know. I feel like he was unmade, but I don't know. But the other part of the ending of showing that everybody's life like went back to the way it would have been, and that there was no bomb. But like Hillinghead, he's still out there just being who he was, like a closeted gay man who's living this lie, but he's not being strangled to death, taking the heat for a murder he didn't commit. So I don't know, at least he's still alive, which means there's hope, which means that the character, might still, find where he was going to go anyway. Right. And you could say the same for maybe Whiteman, who runs into Esther, or maybe not. But without a cult to control him, maybe he's a different man already anyway. And then you get Hassan, who, she just gets her family back. Because watching a freaking giant bomb go off, knowing your kid got blown up, it's good that she doesn't remember all that. And thank goodness all that got erased for for Polly, who didn't have to end up. Ugh. But I think that's all I have. I'm probably gonna forget. I've probably forgotten a lot of things. I probably went down rabbit holes I didn't need to go down. But that's me, baby. That's how it goes. And if you made it this far, then I owe you a Coke. But I'm really glad I got to talk about this, and I hope you guys enjoyed listening to it enough to maybe go check it out, which I hope you do. So, anyway, that's my story. I'm sticking to it, and I will see you on the next video.